Allow me to introduce 𝗙𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦. She is an expert in AI. She's going to be coming up here and talking about what's going on with AI. Is anybody using AI in any function in their organizations? I know we are at Asper. Just a couple. Okay. What are you guys doing?
Don't ask them yet. I have a poll for that.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. All right.
You're taking all my slides, and do you want to present it?
Oh, it's all yours.
He totally wants it. I know it does. Let me make sure that everything that went to sleep is. Thank you, Jason. I appreciate it. Well, good morning, everyone. I am super excited to be here. It is my first time, so with a few of you that already shared that, and I am very grateful for the session being sponsored by our friends at Projection, and also deeply honored to share some of the insights that I have gleaned and learned and applied when it comes to AI in events. It's definitely an exciting times that we live, also a bit scary and risky at the same time, but we're gonna go through all of that. So with that being said, I'm just curious, by a show of hands, how many of you have maybe asked yourselves, there has to be a better way, either planning an event or securing donors or trying to engage? I mean, the challenge is, I took notes. There are quite a few, right? So I'm curious if you ever thought, like, there has to be a better way. So any of you there, like, I'm sure you have asked that question. I thought so. So with that, that's exactly what I want to touch on. What is a better way with the lens of AI applied to it? So that's going to be the focus of my talk. And if I got this one working, there you go. And before I get started, in case you're wondering, who is this person? Allow myself to introduce myself. My name is 𝗙𝗢𝗡𝗞𝗦, as it was said. I am the CEO of a woman-owned event production and technology agency that has been known for its innovative approach, and also the host of Events Demystified podcast, which, if you haven't heard about, it's actually running the Eventful AI season, where I have entertained quite a few conversations from top leaders in the events, in fundraising, discussing how AI is impacting our industry. So that's a great place to just go and hear some other people's experiences, also challenges, and how do they overcome that. And aside from that, I've been fortunate enough to get a few awards and accolades, but really what I'm more prideful and my sort of like sets my soul on fire is creating two communities. One is 𝗙𝗎𝗓𝗪 and the other one is Women Behind the Scenes, which are all based and focused on collaboration over competition mindset. And when I'm not immersed into all the world of events and AI workshops and implementation, I'm competing and also winning in bodybuilding natural competitions. And that alone has been quite a story in itself and a journey. But that's about enough about me here. What I would like to learn more is about you. What are some of your challenges when it comes to implementing AI? We have learned some of your challenges in general. So what I'm going to do next, I'm going to put a QR code on the screen, and I would love for you to take a picture of that or just scan it with your camera and just share some of the challenges regarding to AI implementation or anything that has to do with AI challenges, because I would love to get a glimpse of what does that look like for you, and what are some of the solutions that we can come and maybe brainstorm. And we're going to have some interactive time in which you'll be able to work among yourselves at the tables. The second question, which is part of the same poll, which I'm going to enable a bit later, it will give us a word cloud, and it's going to be anonymous responses. So you're going to have the opportunity to share 3 words with, say, concerns, questions, or just words that describe challenges within this topic. that we're facing. So go ahead, submit your answer to the first question, and I'll share those insights soon. And while you're doing that, I'm going to give you a quick overview of what we're going to cover today. So we've basically kicked things off with introductions. I nailed that. Soon we'll navigate some tools for AI when it comes to strategic planning. And we'll also have several hands-on interactions and brainstorming sessions in which I will present a challenge and a prompt, and you're going to have to work amongst yourselves at your table with coming up with a solution. Now, if you're sitting at a table and you do not like the people that you're sitting with, this is your opportunity to move tables. Sir, I'm kidding. You're kind of stuck there, so you probably don't have that opportunity anymore. I don't see anyone sitting alone, so we got that solved. But that's going to give you really an opportunity to go through some of your specific challenges, and we can work together for towards a solution. So with that, let's see. I'm going to enable the second one as well, because I think we got the first. And the second one is where it's going to give you the word cloud. So you should be able to do the same thing on that QR code. And soon enough, that's going to get populated. And we're going to show that. And going back to our session, what else we're going to do is also dive into some AI-driven sponsorship strategies and engage in yet one another practical exercise, so that we can put some of our ideas into action. And towards the end, we'll discuss some data privacy guidelines and end with a Q&A session. So does that sound good for everyone? Okay, perfect. All right, so now I'm gonna go to my poll here to see what we got and what answers we're gonna have here. Let's see, where did my window go? I wonder if I lost my... Okay, awesome. All right, so I'm gonna go first to definitely, there's the answers, I love it. Okay, so the first one we got here is on the AI adoption. We're actually not better than I thought. There's a lot of work to be done, right, in implementing AI and doing it safely, but we're getting there. I mean, there's data out there that says that at this point in time, we're about a 5% adoption rate, but soon enough, we're gonna be up to 80. And when it comes to challenges, let's see. Very cool. All right. So knowledge is obviously information, like having access to information and understanding seems to be one of the biggest, the largest, like the larger the word is, that means more people actually put that in. So that's a good data point to have. All right, let's go back to where we were here. All right. Now work with me. No. My screen is wanting to be doing its own thing. All right. So having an understanding of all of that we just saw on that poll, I think it's a great place to start, because understanding where we are and where we stand is the first step towards progress. So as we shift our focus to some of the solutions and the strategies that can help us overcome some of the challenges, here's one quintessential question that if you have been running events, working in events, and that can be any type of engagement activity, regardless if you called it an event or not, that's something that anyone should ask themselves. Like, how do we analyze trends? How do we predict outcomes and design events that and engagement opportunities that are not only efficient, but they resonate with our audience? Now, I was barely born when Microsoft Office came up with Word 1.0. That was launched in 1983, and maybe some of you are young enough to remember that. So let me ask you another question. Did Microsoft Word make you a better writer just by using it every day?
I miss paperclip.
What about Microsoft PowerPoint? Did it make you a better presenter? I mean, there is definitely the element of having Microsoft Office having brought some level of efficiency compared to, say, a typewriter, right? Or slide projectors. Anybody remember having to create their own slide by hand? Yeah, the headache of that, I can't even imagine, but I know people have done it and survived doing it. There's no changes to be had. Like, you could not make any changes last minute. But what it didn't really do is enhance your skills. So you either had them or you didn't. This was just a tool for that. Now, here's some mind-blowing data that is provided by Gartner on the adoption of AI that I mentioned, in which by 2026, the adoption of generative AI is expected to be skyrocketing basically up to 80% of all enterprises and organizations that will grow from where we currently are, which is 5%. We're witnessing growth at an unprecedented compound annual rate. And it doesn't stop here, because Gartner projects a future where Gen AI, and that's generative AI, and all the apps that you're probably using right now fall within that category, will become a cornerstone of operations. And by 2025, the global market alone is expected to reach some staggering amounts of growth, again, that is just, it's intense to just look at. But this isn't just about growth. It's about a transformation. It's setting the stage for AI to redefine really how we live and how we work. That's because the current AI tools that are available have the real potential to enhance our abilities, to enhance our knowledge and our output, and truly make us better, unlike, say, tools like Microsoft Office. And in line with that, next, my goal is to showcase 3 simple tools that you can start using right away. They're not something that you probably haven't heard about before, but each one of them is going to present a different workflow and how you can engage with it, and it can give you opportunities, whereas you might want to work with this one or might want to work with the other one. And this is the time when I'm going to also pose a challenge and a prompt to solve that challenge. And you'll have the opportunity at your tables to work together in the spirit of collaboration over competition and just come up with the best answer or solution that you can come up with. And then we'll see what we get. And I'm going to take a few answers from the tables, and we're going to then run it by our friendly AI assistant and see what we get from that. So are you ready for this? Are you ready for the challenge? Okay. And okay, here's the disclaimer. You cannot use your devices or your computer or ChatGPT to find the answers. You're going to have to work amongst yourselves, on a piece of paper. I saw there's paper, I saw there's pens. Just write down that one answer, and then we're going to see what we get, okay? So first on our list is Events GPT Copilot. Now, I did not say ChatGPT. I said Events GPT Copilot. I'm curious if any of you have heard of it or used it before. Used it before? Okay, awesome. So what Events GPT Copilot is actually is a subset of ChatGPT, and is the go-to AI assistant for everything events, because it has been trained on a massive amount of data that is event data, and it's being used by over 3,000 event professionals when it comes to marketing, managing, creating opportunities for sponsorships, event communication, sponsorships and content creation. It's like having that one tireless member on your team that works 24 hours and can assist you in the middle of the night if you really need to. So here's what's gonna happen next. We got a challenge. The challenge is strategically integrating and managing a hybrid event. Now, I just posed a random challenge out there that has to do with events. And the prompt is act as a fundraising manager for an association and outline 5 straightforward fundraising strategies. For each one of those strategies, provide a brief description, what's the point of the strategy, the expected benefit, and who on the team is responsible for that. And I'm going to give you 3 minutes to come up with one answer. Now, you don't have to hit on all the points, but do your best to. And then we're going to take this prompt and ask 𝗙𝗏𝗡𝗏 Copilot and see what it comes up with from its knowledge and database of having dealt with this type of prompt. Are we ready for it? Am I ready to start the timer? Oh, let's see. Got a timer going, and it's gonna be 3 minutes on the clock. Okay, so who's ready to share some of their answer? It doesn't have to be the answer, it can be one answer. Let's see, I said I will pick on someone. I think we're gonna, oh, somebody's pointing fingers. You're thrown under the bus. Let's run the mic really quick to find out what we got. And then I'll probably take 2 more and then run this by 𝗙𝗏𝗡𝗏 Copilot. Okay. Just give us like one, maybe that you came up with.
Okay, so we said, since this is hybrid, an online or mail appeal. A lot of times now, at least in our foundation, we're sending a much smaller segment mailing, most likely to our older donors who have done it by check, paid by check, not online. But then we also do a much larger online appeal. Again, saves us money. We don't have to mail things. The goal is revenue, and that would include development and marketing staff as the people that are responsible.
Okay. Awesome. Anyone else wants to come up with one answer to that? Those are all great answers. So let's see. One more. Let's see one more. Don't look me in the eyes because I'll pick you. All right, let's take the table over there. Who wants to go over there?
So we talked about different strategies. We didn't get to the benefit or who is responsible, but a deliberate social media strategy, benefit being broader audience reach, and development and marketing team would work on it together. And then some of the traditional things like sponsorships and ticket sales registrations and online auctions, attendee engagement, et cetera. So.
Okay, awesome. Well, obviously you guys know how to do your job, but let's see if we enhance that with a bit of a helpful help from our friendly, let's see if I can zoom this in a little bit so you can all see what's happening. Right, so basically I took that one prompt and I dropped it in here and make sure it's the right prompt. Yeah, and this is what we got like in 30 seconds, right? We had the annual membership campaign, which gives you some key action points and some expected outcome, and then who should be responsible for that. Then we had the corporate sponsorship drive, and then special fundraising events, also an online crowdfunding campaign, and some grant writing efforts. And this is just a starter point, okay? It's almost like you have trouble brainstorm amongst yourself, and maybe you've already thought about something like this, but then you're like, well, I didn't think about all those things, right? And I had an even longer one that was written basically on the same prompt. And then I did a comparison between, okay, so this is great, this is trained on all this event data sets. Like, what if I take this now to just like ChatGPT? And this is where, like, if you have the pro version of ChatGPT 4, which is basically giving you way more options and opportunities to even use plugins if you must. So if I were to run the same thing, one thing that I added to the initial prompt was present this in a simple table format, because my mind works if things are organized like this. And that way I can look, I'm like, oh, okay, so what else have we missed, right? Like, we had a crowdfunding, we have a charity gala, we have a sponsorship outreach, membership sales, grant applications. So say you get this and you're like, well, that's great, but I would like to actually emphasize more on this one particular point. And then from here, you can just go and ask it, okay, how do I do this, and how can I use my resources to fit my mission, my vision, my why for this event, or whatever the expected outcome is, right? So it kind of gives you a shortcut into how can we be more effective to do this instead of spending multiple meetings just to come up with that one, solution. So that was that. My next one is going to be, yes.
So there's two versions of ChatGPT.
Mm-hmm.
One is free, but it's old information.
It's not so old, it's just more limited in the sense that it doesn't have access to, say, computer vision, which is DALL-E. DALL-E will create actually images out of just words or describing. It's no longer limited to just the information available since September 2019. It's been upgraded a whole lot just in the last months alone. What I've noticed with ChatGPT 3.5 is if the usage is at an all-time high, you will get basically booted out, and you're gonna have to wait for the access to be, clear again. And that, to me, that's just not saving me time. So I'd rather pay that $20 a month, especially if I am going to use it on a daily basis, because I have access to more than just the ChatGPT. I won't have time to really go into the power of ChatGPT, but you're gonna have opportunities to actually add themes to your workspace, describe exactly what your organization is about in some of the custom, like for example, there's custom instructions where you give it information as to who I am, who you're talking to, what do I want you to respond as, and you can give it like a whole lot of information that relates to your organization, to your association. So now when it responds, it takes that into account to provide you the outcome and the output that you might be looking for. And then on top of that, you have all these plugins. Again, this is another crash course into ChatGPT, which actually might be a free LinkedIn event coming up next week, as in tomorrow. So if you're all gonna be interested to maybe just be part of that, that's when I go more like nitty-gritty into those things. So for the interest of time, we're gonna move on because I have a lot of things to cover. So the next one that I was gonna mention is, this is another tool for event professionals and event marketers, and it's called Project Spark. Any of you have potentially attended PCMA's Convening Leaders this month? If you have not, this was brought at Convening Leaders, and it's basically an initiative that was created by PCMA to shed light on the evolving place of AI in the business event industry. And if you're a PCMA member or a CIMA member, you actually have exclusive free access. Now you can still use it on their, free tier, but it might not be as comprehensive that if you were, getting the full access to it. So with that, here's our prompt here. Now, we want to tailor events to a diverse professional interest audience. And your prompt is, act as an expert event planning expert that provides a strategic plan for designing an event that caters to a wide range of medical society professionals, ensuring content relevancy and engagement. And with that, your time, you know what's next. Your time starts now, and go.
I've been losing sleep.
think who's your wide range professional network, and try to come up with maybe with one strategy to touch on their need. Let's just take one example, say. Like you obviously you're not going to have time to go through bullet points here, but let's just see to take a few examples from that. All right, looks like our time is up. I hear a lot of talking amongst tables that's not really related to our homework here. So, so let's take another table's response. Ryan, are you running it? Are you ready?
So is Jason.
Okay. Got it. All right, so let's do our table here. Are you guys ready to share? Okay, let's go.
I cheated. I actually am on an AI committee at the AFP, and we use a ton of different tools. And so I actually wanted to compare what you were doing in ChatGPT. I compared it with Bard.
Okay.
And asked it to do all the same things. It gave a table with all the same types of prompts. It's very easy to use. Be happy to show you. By the end of the day, you'll be using all these tools.
Yes.
So our strategy is that we needed to conduct some surveys to understand what were the most relevant topics across the medical societies. We also decided a strategy needed to be medical society. Who is the actual audience? Mm-hmm. Is it us, or is it the actual physician on the other end of that? And then also a strategy for communicating with the people, drive them there, and then coming up with a strategy to get it paid for.
Right.
The biggest thing.
Awesome.
That's what we talked about.
Thank you for sharing. Anyone else wants to share? Let's see what table we didn't touch. Let's go with this table here. Yes.
One of the strategies we really took for it was the marketing area, marketing standpoint, and going to other societies that have those members, and then maybe tailoring it using AI to find out what are the areas of need for each of those, or talking to each of those associations to figure it out, and then tailoring our marketing message.
I love that. So this is where, when I say that AI tools enhance your abilities and your knowledge, this is where the human factor, human knowledge comes into place. Like AI is not just going to provide you with the answer and the solution to all your problems. You're gonna have to guide it and teach it and give it input and instructions so that it can elevate that and enhance it, but not to just take over because it doesn't know your challenges. It's almost like your toddler that you still have to teach how to eat and walk and do all the things before it can actually be an active part of the family. Like now I have a 10-year-old that can wash dishes, but it took a lot of work to get there. Sort of the same way, right? So with Spark, Project Spark, this is what it looks like. And again, this is the free tier. You don't have to go intense with like a bunch of monthly memberships, because a lot of those AI tools will stack up with like you have this one and this one and this one, and they're all monthly memberships. And you're like, by the end of this, I'm paying like, I don't know, $500 in just like, AI tools. So you can do multiple things here. Like you can do content generation, repurpose, legal, brainstorming, analysis, labs. You even have the ability to, create agendas. And it has different prompts that are already started. What I wanted to do here is just create a custom one. And this is where we basically entered that one that we started and see what we get. The good thing about this is that once you get your response and it gives you, an answer, an output. Oh, now it logged me out. Great. Lovely. Yeah, Chrome is actually known for always kicking us out, especially if I'm on a different network. It's like, I don't know who's joined. So, okay. Back to what we're doing. All right, so just went over that, and this is the prompt that I just started, and it's already given us a response, like pre-event planning, content development, and gives you instructions on like how to go about it and what to do, interactive, engaging activities, maybe some technological integrations, evaluation, continuous improvement. But say you're like, oh, that's great, but actually I want something more. Or what I did here is like rewrite the above in a more concise fashion in a bullet format. And that's where I can now look at it. I'm like, okay, I understand this better. Or you can generate another option. It's like, okay, well, I'm not so happy with that one response. How about you give me something else? And you can go and communicate with it and give it more input or more information to really get what you're looking for, or enhance some of the input with actual information that relates to your specific solution, problem, association, challenge, whatever it is. But this is just one other example of how this can be done. And then part of the same thing, now you can include a lot of analysis that you basically can use, like we're going to talk about sentiment analysis, and we're going to talk about some of that. But even in the content generation part, building an agenda based on previous data, also based on content engagement that attendees like favor one agenda, one session over the other. You can give it that information. It's going to create something that is really, it's really driven by that data to be engaging. As we had like some, challenges here. How do we engage our donors? How do we retain younger, members? It can be so much easier to have the tools at hand, so you can do that in a way that is faster and more effective, and save you a lot of headaches in the process of trying to figuring that one out. All right, so going back to our next one, and this is the last one on this that I'm going to touch on. And this is a project management tool that it's been developed by Notion Labs. It's a space really that's enhanced by AI, where you can run all your events from, you can even run a company, you can think, write, plan, manage projects, and then use the power of AI to enhance whatever, whatever content that you're creating, or even like things like, oh, I want this one super long abstract to be summarized in a way that it's easy, for me to read, or any type of, application that you're thinking. So the next challenge here is going to be engaging busy medical society professionals like yourself. And we're going to try to create an event that caters to the medical society professionals, including physicians, nurses, admins, and come up with some content relevancy and engagement to keep them, interested in the conference. Like we're talking about, how do we want to engage the newer generation? Well, this is one of those ways in which maybe we can come up with fresh ideas, new creative ideas to do so. So 3 minutes on the clock. Let's brainstorm just maybe a few ideas, and then we're going to see what else we got on top of that. Okay, I'm going to start the timer now. Let's see, 3 minutes. And make it applicable to your own specific society, knowing what you know that the challenges are. We're going to cut our time short a little bit here in the interest of time. And we're going to take a couple of answers. I haven't heard from the tables in the back. Who wants to share in the back? Okay, there you go.
So we talked about, if this was in person, doing some sort of roundtable, seeing some, even on a multidisciplinary called out here, having some hands on, build out of space of the future, those kinds of things, to engage sponsors.
Awesome. Yeah. Okay, anyone else at the last table there?
We had mentioned something similar, but then also encouraging them to come as a group from an institution. So have the attendees come with their fellows, come with their residents all together. And then it was also said, I think, more fun. The docs like speakers of high levels and, opportunities. They want something a little flashy in addition to the CME that they need to come to receive.
Awesome. So a lot of this information that you came up with, it's actually tribal knowledge, which is super effective if you're going to go to a tool like this, right? To actually give it as one of the outcomes of the type of results you're looking for, right? Because like what we gave it was a bit of a, okay, here's a general, this is what we're going to do. And this is what I'm showing you how Notion would come up with the answer for this. I use Notion for a lot of project management, and that's where I run all my actionable items, all my tools, all my projects, all my events, everything goes there. But on top of that, it also creates very much strong analysis of certain projects that were completed, and I would go back and rely on that data to see how I can improve my next project, my next event, my next whatever that might be, right? So say we got this and you're like, okay, I'm looking at this, but how about you give me more information, like continue writing, or you can make it longer. Or another thing that's super interesting here, that Notion is going to give you the option to change the tone of this into either a more professional, more casual, more friendly, and great for writing donor letters. Like say you want to, be very personalized to whom you're sending the letter, and you want to change the tone based on who that donor is, like based on your relationship with the donor, you can change all of that. And you can, either go like, try again. I'm not so happy about what this was, but we're gonna go with this for now. I'm gonna replace that. And then here we can ask it again and say, okay, you can improve the writing. Another good one if you're not a writer, fix spelling and grammar, or you can even make it a shorter thing. Like, okay, I got this, but now I wanted to make it short for to create I don't know, either a LinkedIn post or an Instagram post because I want to take it to my social. I can change the tone, like I said, like casual, straightforward, confident, friendly, or simplify the language, this is phenomenal if you're dealing with a lot of medical terms that might, be hard. It's that tribal lingo that not everybody understands. And that to put it in a layman's terms, it will take a lot of work. This can do it for you. Yes.
Are you, or anyone else, I don't know, are you giving attribution to this, that what you're putting out is been supported by AI in terms of, and I'll ask you as well,
Depending on what type of constraints you have within your organization, if that is required, then you should put it out. That will be transparency, also builds trust, knowing this was created by, whatever AI, or it was enhanced by AI. Because the idea is not to just go there and be like, write this amazing abstract for me from nowhere. The idea is to come up with your brain, your mental, thought process, and just take it to the next level. Because you're still relying on your knowledge, you're still relying on all the things that you know within your association or organization, right? But it just makes this, and repurposing content in this type of format, it's so easy. Like if you have to write a newsletter from this, next thing you say, put this in the format of a newsletter. And you just copy and paste, or you put in a format of a email that you wanna. Somebody had a great application that last night we were talking about that they use it, and that's another way to do so. Okay, so we're gonna move on because there's a lot of applications. I can even go into personal ways in which I use it, but that's probably not gonna be, that's not the point of this. So what we're gonna do next, actually, one thing I wanna touch on is, just because it came out of the conversation over wine last night, that's what happens if you give me wine. I'm going to come up with a table for you, and it's going to have a lot of words. But what it was a nice conversation that we had. And one of the ladies, I see over there, that table, she presented some concerns and challenges that were brought about AI as it comes to using it for research in a society's grant process, which made me think of like, what are some use cases in which you can still implement AI to streamline operations, to enhance decision-making, to maintain the quality of like the submitted abstracts, especially if you're in the research department. And here's just a few cases, and I'm gonna go, this is just the overview, but like say the first one could be initial screening and organization. Now, AI can really help you categorize and organize some of those abstracts based on, some predefined criteria that you're going to give it, and help focus each grant that each abstract that you receive, in order to ensure that if you're focused on pertinent submissions, obviously there has to be a quality check on that. It has to be a human oversight that ensures that whatever relevant abstracts are not incorrectly, categorized on or discarded. But if your first part of the job was done and then you just add your human oversight to it, you just save yourself a lot of time. Another case study here is we're talking about plagiarism and originality checks, right? And I think there was a disclaimer that my friend over there said that they use for anyone that submits abstracts, they actually have a tick box that checks, I have not used AI to write this abstract. How much of that is real or not? Obviously, it's based on a trust factor, right? Like, are you going to check it or not? How are you going to check it? But AI on your end side can check if those abstracts actually were using some kind of a plagiarism, and it will ensure that it was original, again, in order to enhance the integrity of the submission process. And anything that gets flagged obviously should be analyzed by a human expert to confirm that AI's findings are true and they're not just hallucinations. Another one here is, and this is important, especially if you have non-active English speakers. And I have worked a lot of foundations and symposiums where there's a lot of non-English speaking experts and doctors that would submit a lot of their abstracts, but it's very hard to understand. Like when they present it, like it really takes you extra mental capacity to hear or even to understand what they're saying, because there might be some grammatical errors or some unclear language in the way that's presented. But this also makes it more easy for people to be able to present their ideas clearly, especially when they do come at a disadvantage. If you're not, a English speaker and you have an accent like I do and all the things. And then the last one was related to feedback and iteration. Because say you have this standard feedback process in which if an abstract was rejected, you want to be fair and you want to be able to give constructive feedback so that the researcher knows what to do in the future. That also has to be vetted, obviously, by an experienced human reviewer. But if you already have the list of it, now it saves you time. So you focus on the ones that have been flagged, and then you can go and say, okay, I can work on this, and I can figure out how can we make sure that this is actually, a better abstract in the future. So basically, in order to implement all of those effectively, there has to be some kind of an ethical and transparent framework on the use of AI in order to ensure that there's transparency, but also you have to communicate to applicants that you are using AI to, sort through applications or to vet applications with the human expert reviewers, because that will only build trust in a way, because now participants know what they're against. They know that there's integrity in the process and there's fairness, and then you can ensure your grant process is efficient, but it's also it's making the decision making somewhat more improved and maybe even easier to find those quality submitted abstracts. So that was just a use case that I wanted to throw in there. And with that, before we move on, I'd like to just pause for a second and just recognize the fact that you have all used your collective knowledge and strength. And I want to highlight the ability of, coming as a diverse group of people to work together towards a solution. That's what I really call that collaboration over competition mindset, the community-centric philosophy in which I'm a big fan of. But that's where sharing and teamwork and mutual support really elevates not just the entire event community and not just the person, but also the entire event community and the association. And I think you guys all deserve a round of applause. So please go and do that. And some confetti. There you go. Now we don't have to clean after that because it's done. And with that, coming back to our topic, just a quick recap. We have looked at how now ChatGPT is basically the main LLM, which is the language model. And all the other three that I mentioned are kind of like subsets of the big ChatGPT, right? But they're more niched. And this is where the future is going towards. And I'm going to touch on custom AI agents, which everything is going to become more mixed, like more niched. Imagine like being a generalist versus being an expert, right? So think of like Events GPT Copilot as your expert for event. Project Spark can be an expert for business events, especially B2B interactions. And Notion can be your expert for productivity, note-taking, keeping people on the same page. And I'm going to give you a example of how that was used just in an event last year as a case study. And now that we kind of sort of like navigate over those tools, obviously the question still remains now. Is AI a friend? Or is it a foe? Is it more like the C-3PO droid, right? Or is it more like the fearsome Terminator? The reality is that time will tell. And all I can do right now is just give you a little bit of a background story on a case study, which had to do with one organization that just wanted to improve their processes and their engagement and their ROI, integrating some of the AI tools that we had. This was back in November. It was Q4 of last year. So we didn't even have like a lot of tools, but we had enough to scratch the surface and implement it in a way that we wanted to see if it would make a difference. So what that was looking at, we really wanted to make sure that we're getting value from the event by simplifying the planning process. We are also making it more engaging. What happened here? Okay. We're making it more engaging for attendees. We're proving ROI to sponsors, and we're also using deep learning to glean some information and analytics for use for a future event. So aside from the three tools that I'm going to mention how we use them, we use several different tech tools. Like, for example, we use 𝗬𝗏 for registration. We use Session Board for Academium is here as well, which is another great tool for using for managing speakers' content. We use Optimi, which I'm going to touch on a little later for sponsorships management. And then even an event marketing was handled by Snowball. But the main ideas and the plans and the areas that were really crafting this whole production were took into account the three AI tools that we just mentioned. And this is how it was done. Basically, in the pre-event planning process, we use ChatGPT for strategy, brainstorming, and even post-event feedback for improvements in ROI based on the data that we collected, and then we fed it back to it. Project Spark was basically used for agenda design, implementation, session analysis, which was great because it really gave us information on what type of content attendees really wanted based on past data, and what is the type of session length that those sessions should be so that we keep them engaged. And then Notion was just for keeping everyone on the same page with planning timelines and meeting notes, speakers, content management, as well as some actionable to-do lists. And at the end, we use AI analytics, obviously, to provide a summary of all the learnings so that we know how can we do this event better for next year. So I know that you're all seasoned event professionals that already know that measuring an event's ROI is essential to show its success and the value of the resources used. It's about analyzing both the clear and not so clear and not so obvious gains from the event. Needless to say that in order to do that, though, you do have to set some specific goals before you even get started. You got to keep track of the data, and then you also have to analyze that data. So for this particular conference, we compared the event's outcome with previous years, and it ultimately showed a better ROI based on some of the analytics that had to do with cost, benefits, how satisfied attendees were, how well the resources were used, and how engaged the attendees were. And that preliminary data, I heard someone talking about wanting to, like, they were talking about trade shows and wanting to get a bit more specific about getting exhibitors back up to previous COVID levels, right? There is one tool that's called Fast Sensor, and that has been able to really provide us with the data that we needed to have that engagement measured, which was boosted about 32%. Not, this is like rounding the numbers just for the, making it easy, but it was because of the quality of the sessions that were had, as well as by shortening those sessions for each one of those sessions, just because that allowed then attendees to not just absorb the information, but also to do it without feeling overwhelmed. Because if you moved from session to session to session to session, by the end of the day, you're not going to remember any of those sessions anymore. If you don't have time to sort of like give your brain some break to, like, oh, what did I learn on this, Another way another data that we got was networking was enhanced by about 28% by pre-event AI matchmaking. And that was done by using Grape. So we basically walked into the event knowing that this is the people I'm going to want to meet. This is the people that I should connect with. This is what we have in common. And also by extending breaks, which gave everyone more time to connect with those people and have conversations versus just running from one thing to another. And then finally, the way we streamlined planning was by using, Notion. We use AI for taking notes, which was, providing also concise summaries and next action steps. And that was Read AI. And then it also helped keep our team organized and focused and energized. And this is important because then they had time to tend to their well-being. They didn't feel like they were burned out after every single meeting. And for us, that was important because, any post-event, burnout event professional out there that including yourselves, I'm pretty sure you've all been there, right? So we try to avoid that at all costs. And that was one way in which AI helped us do it. Now, moving on to our next hot topic, sponsorship strategies. And I will have that diagram a little blown up so you can actually read the words. But sponsors, they're more than just, there to give us money. They also add value and they also add reputations to some of our events. Now, most associations that I know and I'm part of often use a combination of their internal resources and external resources to procure sponsors. And the diagram here just kind of shows an example of, say, a fundraising framework that is typically mostly approached as. And I just went more like dived in to give you like sort of like maybe ideas or something like you say, oh yeah, I'm doing that, check, 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 check. Or, oh, maybe I should do more of that. And right now, I won't have time to actually touch on the internal efforts that are very much member-centric and sponsor-focused, as I'm sure that you've all got that down to a science, hopefully, by leveraging your existing membership base for connections and introductions to potential sponsors and focusing on those year-round strategic partnerships. And I know that Jason is going to talk about that some more soon enough. That's right. A bird told me. Yes.
Are you going to share your slides?
I will have a QR code at the end for all of you to actually download the slides. Yes, because that will be easier for you to keep all of this in mind. I figured that not all of us have photographic memory. Okay, so what I'll focus on next, and this is the second part of that same diagram, is the external approach that's focused on personalized campaigns to attract new sponsors, which again, I took some notes and that seems to be very much a challenge for a lot of you, and showcase some tools that can make the process of finding and qualifying new sponsors more targeted and more efficient. And obviously, this process of finding new sponsors, qualifying new sponsors, in order to qualify the right sponsors, it is important to still nurture strong relationships and partnerships. Yet by mixing AI into this process and adding that human factor, basically our personal skills, we might have the potential to, take our sponsor procurement strategies to the next level. So building on the community-centric philosophy that I mentioned earlier and that you all displayed so well, let me introduce you to a powerful AI ally that could be very beneficial at unlocking sponsor preferences and predicting real-world outcomes. And those are AI-powered custom GPT agents. And before you're like, what is that? I will explain it. This is basically your custom GPT, like you would have the GPT that you can, subscribe to, that would need to be basically trained on the collective wisdom, on the tribal insights of your very specific organizations, association, foundation, society, I mean, you name it, for the purpose of offering a nuanced approach to planning events that are finding the right sponsors, speaking to the right sponsors, and engaging with the right sponsors. Now, when you create a custom GPT agent, you don't have to share that information with the world, especially if you're going to build it on your tribal knowledge. It's like, this is your closet AI assistant that not everybody has access to, but your association has access to. Because you have to make that difference. Like, just because ChatGPT is available to anyone, a custom GPT agent wouldn't be available to anyone. It would be only available to your association and your association members. Because again, it's built on proprietary data, on things that your association knows, and it's like what I call tribal knowledge. And these AI agents, they don't just search, they actually understand. And by analyzing some of the past event data and some of the donor behaviors and sponsor engagements, they have the ability to predict and recommend sponsors that really align very precisely with your events team, your events audience, with what you're looking for. It's about kind of like smart targeting, leveraging that tribal knowledge and insights to make those meaningful strategic connections that turn into conversions. Another valuable tool here is in our arsenal is sentiment analysis, which extends basically our understanding beyond just analyzing some of that data, because it takes it into the world. It takes it into social media and industry reports and anything that that sponsor has put out there. In layman's terms, is kind of like a word of mouth, because it really gauges the public perception of a particular potential sponsor so that it assesses how well they might align with your association's mission, vision, why. So it kind of like looks only for the ones that are going to support that in a way that's meaningful to you. So this isn't just about, finding the right sponsors. It's also about finding the right sponsor who resonate with your association, with your event, with the values that you stand for. And now you're like, okay, that's great, Anka. I'm so happy that I know more about this, but how exactly is that all done, right? Well, I'm glad you asked, because I have some tools for you and they're all there. So those tools, what they do, they really focus on sentiment analysis for better understanding of your audience, as well as of your sponsors and what they're looking for. And each one of those tools have specific things that they do. And again, you can take a picture of that, but you also have access to the slides. I'm not going to read all of that because it's on there. What these tools do is they really give you the ability to like choose one tool and see what you get. Because my goal here is to just pique your interest with doing a little bit more research, but targeted research, knowing that this can do that for you, okay? So expanding on the idea of using AI for sentiment analysis and smart targeting, predictive modeling is basically taking our sponsorship strategies to the next level. Now, don't be intimidated by, such a fancy technical term, because the reality is you have been doing this all your life, at home, in life, and you have been forecasting the future based on data points either from the past or the present. So in computer lingo, that's called predictive modeling. But really, in real life, you have done this by just knowing, oh, this happened yesterday, so most likely that's going to happen tomorrow, and based on like information that you're collecting just as a human being. So you've done this in an analog fashion all your life, right? Now, by digging into historical sponsorship data and current industry trends, AI can really predict the potential ROI for each one of those sponsors that you might be engaging with, helping you focus on high-value partnerships, ensuring that the sponsorship decisions made today are informed by what's likely to bring the most value tomorrow. And AI enhanced modeling really can take that approach from like reactive to productive, from guessing to knowing. And in the real world, there are several AI and analytics tools that can help you do that, especially in the context of sponsorship and event planning. Now, I understand that this is where I might lose some of you because a deep dive into analytics probably is not everyone's cup of tea. But let me tell you, I'm pretty sure you have that numbers person on your team that eats spreadsheets for breakfast. This is the person you want to make your friend, because this is the person that's going to look at one of those tools and say, I can help with that because I get it. I know how that works. I won't spend too much time here. There's a lot to learn about each one of those. Actually, I left out one tool here that you probably all heard about, and that is Salesforce, which now has Tableau with Einstein Analytics part of it. But the learning curve on that is a little steep. So if you don't have that, vein for analytics and learning things fast, probably I wouldn't recommend that because it's going to take, a bit to just get the hang of it. Once you know how to use it, it's going to be powerful, but it's going to take a minute. All right. So these AI tools can definitely empower you to create that personalized sponsor profile, considering what your budget is, considering what the demographic is, what past sponsorships might be, and even personality traits that can be gleaned from social media interactions. And this type of personalization really can help you tailor your outreach efforts and using AI learning to even further and make your communication even better based on the fact that AI can learn from past interactions. Hyper-personalized content is the way of the future because it's all about AI helping create those custom proposals, those sponsor prospectus that showcases how your event aligns with the sponsor goals, boosting conversion rates. And I would definitely look into ways to do that because it's so important. And next, I have a few for sponsor acquisition tools and management platforms. And in the interest of time, again, I won't have time to just dive too deep into any of this. You can glean some of the pros and cons of using each one of them. It'll be easier to go back to the slides and then maybe looking into each one of them. I know that I have used Hello Sponsor, and again, we mentioned 𝗙𝗡𝗡 in the use case earlier. Just keep in mind what your primary needs are, what your budget is when you're choosing any tool at all, because one tool might be really good at offering, say, a unique matching feature, while another tool could excel in automating some of the outreach and the predictive outcomes. And when you have this, and you can even pair it with, like, say, ChatGPT or EventsGPT Copilot, for instance, that's what I would say can create that ideal strategy. But again, there's always going to be the need for trust building, value demonstrations, and those are vital in enabling meaningful sponsor relationships and partnerships that still rely on your personal skills. You're not going to be able to just have AI do all that work for you. It's still you showing face and being personable and nurturing some of those relationships. But perhaps by implementing some of those tools and using like that data-driven approach, we can up-level our sponsor acquisition into more of a strategic plan of like personalized engagement, which can create mutually beneficial partnerships. Now, I hope the insights that were gained from these AI platforms will give you at least the curiosity to want to go and explore those some more. Next, we're going to do our last session, and that's what the QR code is actually. If you have questions in advance, please do so. If you have concerns, if you have anything that, as I went through these slides a little fast as I'm looking at the time, I want to make sure that you can put it in the Slido poll. And if I don't have the answer now, I definitely want to get back to you with a answer. It might not be the answer, but I'm going to have a answer. So I'm going to make sure that that happens. And now into our next session, brainstorming session. This is what we're going to do, and this is a little different, okay? And the assignment here is to brainstorm amongst yourselves at your tables. And now, instead of coming up with the answer or the response to a prompt given, this time you need to come up with the prompt itself for just one of those categories. So just pick one, don't go through all of them, pick one, and then I'll call on a couple of you to share your prompt, and then we're gonna run that through one of those tools that we mentioned. So I'll give you an example here so that you get what we're doing. Say I'm choosing the last prompt, the sponsor retention strategies, and the prompt I might come up with for that is act as an expert event professional, generate the sponsor follow-up plan post-event that utilizes AI to analyze feedback and enhance sponsor satisfaction for long-term partnership retention. Now, this is where I would actually input into this prompt that post-event analytics that I got from my event so that I can give it even more information, right? So before we go ahead and come up with our own prompt, and we're going to use AI to run it by, I must give you the most basic prompting formula frameworks, basically your cheat sheet on how to create this. If you've never taken a prompt engineering class, this is going to be your cheat sheet in all your prompting endeavors, because you can really use this universally on any prompt for ChatGPT. And what this does is basically breaks down how you should build a prompt, and it's called the RGC prompting. And what it has all those 5 elements. Role, you have to assign ChatGPT a persona. You've noticed how in many of my prompts I asked act as a something, right? So you give it a persona so it knows what to look at, it knows what to start with, like what mindset to get into. Then you want to give it the desired output, the result, the goal, the purpose of the output, the context, who, what, where, why, and the constraints. There's always some limitations, there are always some guidelines. And to put it all together, going back to the first prompt that I just gave you, here's how that breaks down, right? So we had that prompt that I mentioned, and then how do we break it down? Role, expert event professional. Result, sponsor follow-up plan. Goal, enhance sponsor satisfaction for long-term partnership retention. Context, post-event sponsor management. And the constraint is use of AI in feedback analysis. Does that break it down for you in a way that makes sense? Okay, so then are we all ready for the challenge? I brought this back to the side here so you can reference it as you're building this one prompt. And I'm gonna take that prompt and put it into one of our AI tools. So I'm gonna give you probably 2 minutes. Like, where's my time at? When am I done? Am I so?
We're about 20 minutes long right now.
Okay, so we're gonna do this one last prompt, and then I'm out of here. Okay, are we ready? All right, let's give it 2 minutes on the clock. All right, our time is up. Let's see who wants to test their prompt. Who's ready? Hold on. So create a letter to a potential donor, thanking them. Okay, let's see. Now, keep in mind that when it's writing this letter, it's writing with my instructions, which is usually like cheeky, funny, and what I'm going to probably have to do is maybe like rephrase this in a more professional manner, because my emails tend to be a bit more like, on the cheeky side. See? So now I would be like, rewrite this in a professional manner. And so it gave me two different options, right? It's like, okay, I see that you're going for something more like, which version do you like most, right? So like if you read all of that, what would be more, right? So now I would take that, I would read it, I would also make sure that it's in line with what my association, my organization stands for. I might correct it if it's like, well, I don't know if like we're really gonna talk about this or that, but it even gives you opportunity to detail like special recognition, events, perks, or whatever it is, specific goals or impacts for the donation, right? It gets you started. So now instead of you spending like half an hour trying to think of like, how am I gonna like phrase this so it comes professional, but also it's doing the thing of like what I'm trying to ask here, it can do that for you. So, is that what you got? Similar? Okay, awesome. Okay, so here's what we're not gonna do because we sort of like ran out of our time here. All right, so what I'm not gonna go over is some of the data privacy that I mentioned and best practices. However, I will include, it's gonna be in the slides, and you will be able to go and glean over this, because I wanna make sure that you have access to some of the key areas of concerns when it comes to applying and implementing AI in your association. And I have a few guidelines and best practices on how to do that in a safe manner. And then at the end, basically, this was my conclusion, because I really believe that, you know, we stand at the threshold of very much of a new era, but yet it's still in our purview as event professionals, as associations and fundraisers, to be the architects of experiences and events that inspire, educate, and connect. We don't get a free pass from that. It's still on us. AI can enhance our abilities to do so, but then it's still us that's gonna have to do that. And our job still stands to create memorable events, but also that are deeply impactful and valuable. And my hope is that everything that was mentioned today, and this is the last slide for the questions, you can still do that and send those questions to me, and I'll make sure I get back to you, especially if you have something that's very much relevant to, again, some of those challenges that were mentioned, because I want to make sure that I can provide you with more specific to your challenge solution. And with that, that was going to be the last poll. This is where you can get the slides. Make sure that you scan it, and then I will email those to you. And if you want to keep in touch with all the AI tools, and I have a growing list of AI tools for events, for business, for productivity, for medical associations, for associations of all kinds, you can also get that via that. And with that, I am done. My time is done here. This is where you can connect with me on LinkedIn. LinkedIn is my place where I would brainstorm and bring a lot of those new findings to. So with that, thank you so much for your collaboration. Thank you so much for actually engaging in those exercises. And I hope you leave with some practical tools that you can start using, or at least with a curiosity to wanna, get started to learning more and applying some of those in your day-to-day operations and workflow. And with that, I'm done. Thank you.
Thank you, Anka. That was fantastic. Lots of information. So we are going to take a break. Let's shorten it, though, from the 15 minutes on the agenda. We'll give you 10. So if we can be back in here at 10:15, we will start with the next session. So thank you.